So we've covered our trailer a lot in videos, but the one thing we haven't really talked about is our tow vehicle. So while we live in our Airstream, our truck gets us from point to point and lets us explore once we get there, so it's just as important to us. There are plenty of options and reasons why people choose the tow vehicles that they do, and there's plenty of opinions on what's right. We're not going to get into that here. We're just going to go over the truck we have and some of the modifications we've done along the way to help out with life on the road. I'll give links to all the products below in the description, and if you stay to the end, I'll show you the newest modification that I just installed today. To start, we tow with the 2020 Ford F-250 Super Duty. It's the Tremor package with the 6.7 liter diesel engine, and it's the XLT trim level with four-wheel drive. We bought her new, and right now she's got just over 98,000 miles on the odometer. Prior to hitting the road, and actually prior to owning an RV, we owned a farm and I had a regular job that I commuted to. So this truck had a life before towing an Airstream around the country. She hauled feed, hay, livestock, and took me back and forth to the office every day. And the truck's done great. It's a workhorse. It's handled everything we've thrown at it, but that still doesn't mean we haven't made a few changes along the way. From a drivetrain and power perspective, she's stock. We haven't done any performance modifications, and that's not because we're opposed to those types of things. It's actually kind of the opposite. Neither one of us really does well with moderation when it comes to adding power. So rather than go down that rabbit hole, we've just stayed away from it and left things as they are. So what have we done? We'll go ahead and we'll break that down into interior modifications and then some exterior modifications. Starting with the inside of the cab, we've made a few additions, and the first one stares you right at the face when you get in, and that's the steering wheel. Being the XLT trim level, we had the rubber steering wheel, and over time it started to degrade. So once that happened, then I just started to pick at the little pieces that were coming off and made it even worse. So we went ahead and replaced the steering wheel with one out of the Ford Raptor. It's a really straightforward swap. Just had to change around a couple of the buttons on the steering wheel so that the functions matched up, and it also has the paddle shifters. And then with the addition of a wiring harness from Boosted Grey Goose Designs, you're able to get the paddle shifters working. It's not a must-have by any means, but if you do want to downshift while driving, say driving through the mountains out west, it's a lot easier to do from the wheel with the paddle shifters as opposed to the little button on the shifter stalk. Then moving on from the steering wheel, we added the dash mount from BuiltRight Industries along with some mounts from 67 Designs, and that just gives us a nice place to hold our phones and mount the monitor for our backup camera on the trailer, as well as, we can mount a GoPro or other things up there. And then along with the mounts, I added a USB power source up at the top of the dashboard tray so that it just makes wire management a little easier and keeps the cords from hanging all over the place. Also up front is our dash cam. When we hit the road, we knew we wanted to have something, and we use Garmin products already in other areas, so we just stuck with that with their Dash Cam 47. It's small and tucks out of the way, and if we had the powered rearview mirror, we'd be able to just easily pull power right from there with a little adapter. But with the XLT model, we don't have that, so we routed the wire up through the headliner, then down through the A-pillar on the passenger side to the fuse panel in the passenger side footwell, and that's where we pulled power for the camera as well as the dash USB mounts that I just mentioned. And speaking of rear view mirrors, we took ours down. Once we added the topper, it really wasn't doing anything, and it just got in the way when we were in the mountains and going through turns, so we took it off. Knowing we were going to be traveling on the road, we knew we wanted to have, a couple of secure spots to, keep important documents or valuables or something if we needed to lock them away. So in comes the console vault from E&G. The center consoles on these trucks are huge, but I didn't want to give up the whole thing to one of the safes that takes up the whole center console. So the E&G is nice. It is only half the console. It leaves the other half open and still allows you to use the tray that comes with the truck from the factory. So you can keep, you know, non-secured items there. Compared to others that I've seen, this safe is really beefy. It's 12 gauge steel, fully welded, concealed hinges, opens with a combination lock, and then uses a key for an emergency backup or to reset the combination. To help keep some of the mess down inside, we use the WeatherTech floor liners in the front and the rear. Not only do they do a good job of trapping a bunch of sand and things like that off our shoes, but they work great with mud and water. You can trash the floor liners and then just pull them out and hose them off and you're good to go. For the seats, we've got the Rough Country neoprene seat covers. You know, farm work and open water swimming that we used to do just meant that we were getting in and out of the truck, dirty, wet, both. And these really just help keep the cloth in shape. These seat covers help protect the cloth seats that came in our truck, and they're about half the price of some of the other ones on the market and have held up great over the last couple of years for us. We travel with 2 dogs and they ride in the back seat on travel days. When we first got started, they both rode in crates, but recently Rhett's kind of decided that that wasn't for him. So our current setup is 1 backseat rider crate from Rufflin Kennels, and that's where Sutton rides on travel days. And then Rhett rides beside her. We picked up a large dog bed made by Kong, and it fits in the gap between the front and rear seat and gives him a place to lay. In the Super Duties, there's usually a storage tray under the back seat, and we removed that storage tray so we'd have a nice flat area to put the crates or the dog bed. And then we have a rear seat cover from 4K9s, and we had that in our other truck, and we had it before the crates, so we've just left it. You know, helps protect the fabric a little bit from getting dog hair all over it, and it also gives us a space behind that cover where we can store some extra stuff and just keep it out of sight. So finally, in the back, we've got the rear seat release from BuiltRight Industries. So the Super Duty seat back does fold down, but there's no release to get to it. The manual actually says to get a box end wrench and reach behind the back seat and find the lever and hook the box end wrench on it and pull it up to release the rear seat. So not very convenient. And BuiltRight they make a little lever that attaches to it, has a piece of webbing on it that you can route out the side and just grab the strap and pull it, and the seat will fold forward. So it makes accessing the storage behind the seat just that much easier. So that wraps up the inside modifications we've done, with the exceptions of some of the software updates we've made. FORScan is a software scanner for the Ford suite of vehicles, so Ford, Lincoln, Mercury, but it doesn't only pull codes, it will actually let you change some of the settings in the computer. It's easy to do, and there's plenty of write-ups or videos and other resources on how to do it. I'm not going to cover it here, but just know that anytime you're making changes to programming, be careful, back up your work. You don't want to make a mistake and cause yourself a real headache because you changed some setting on your truck that you didn't mean to. But we've used it to turn off all the chimes in our truck, so open doors, things like that don't beep at you anymore. Or, you know, if you take a seatbelt off, it doesn't beep. We turned it's called Bambi mode. It basically lets the fog lights stay on with the high beams, so that's helpful, you know, at night in rural areas. The one we probably use the most is we turned on nav in motion. So rather than locking out the navigation system when you're moving, this lets you make changes to it. So I mean, we travel with, there's 2 of us in here, one's driving, one's navigating. So this lets the person, you know, navigating be able to enter in new coordinates or a new destination without us having to stop before those changes can be input. We also used FORScan to update the number of gallons our fuel tank holds when we upgraded our fuel tank, but we'll get to that one later. You know, and I'm sure there's some other stuff I changed that I just can't remember right now, but if you check into it, there is a whole list of options. Okay, so now moving to the outside of the truck, we'll start with some suspension and handling things. We really haven't done much here. Pretty early on, we replaced the stock steering stabilizer with an adjustable one from Fox. Was it required? Probably not, but I got a good deal on it through a message board I'm a part of, so why not? So the other thing we did prior to hitting the road with our Airstream was to add a set of Sumo Springs. We went with the yellow 2,800 pound version. They're a really simple install and replace the factory bump stops that sit above the leaf springs, and they just helped level out our ride when we have the truck loaded up and the trailer hitched. Otherwise, you don't really notice they're there. If there's no weight on the back, they're not engaged, and the truck rides just like stock. Another easy addition to see is our topper. As the needs for our truck have changed, so have our bed cap options. We've owned multiple trucks over the years, and this is the first one to have any sort of topper on it or bed cover, and we've actually had 3 on this truck. You know, the first one we went with was the Retrax Pro XR, and you know, it's a great cover, worked really nice for us at the time. Then when we thought we were going to start overlanding and started to build the rig out as an overlanding rig, needed to change plans, so we went with the back Revolver X4S with a Putco VentureTech rack, and that was going to be the base of our overlanding setup. We were going to mount our rooftop tent to it and, you know, have other stuff mounted on the sides. But in the long run, we shelved the overlanding plans and opted for life in an Airstream instead. So we left the rack on for a while, but quickly, you know, started to realize we were going to need more space if we were going to hit the road full time. So we opted for the ARE V series topper. We've got it in their OTR finish, which is essentially like a Line-X coating as opposed to going with color matched paint. And we've got the side doors on it, so we can open up the back and both sides. We've organized the truck so that everything we need to set up camp is along that outside edge, so we can get to it from the doors, and we don't have to crawl inside the bed to get things that we're going to need on a regular basis. One of the first things we did early on with it was to just take it and get the windows blacked out with some limo tint. Keeps eyes off what's in the bed. But we did add LED lighting inside the topper, so if we are working at night, we can see what we're doing. And we've got the rails and roof racks on top, which is where our MAXTRAX sit right now. Keeps the MAXTRAX easily accessible if we need to hopefully help somebody else out, not ourselves. And then inside the bed, we've got the WeatherTech tech liner, and then on the sides of the bed, we've got the BuiltRight Industries bedside racks. It gives us a spot to tie some stuff down, helps us store some equipment. So, you know, on the passenger side, we've got our fire extinguisher and an axe. On the driver's side, we've got a shovel and some gear for our air compressor, you know, hoses and air guns and stuff like that. Speaking of the air compressor, we have an ARB Dual Compressor mounted above our spare tire with a 2-gallon tank mounted just behind the driver's side rear tire. So you can access the air chuck from either the rear bumper or from the side of the truck. And it's been really handy having that air available whenever we need it. We don't have to worry about driving the truck or the trailer through a gas station to get air. And, you know, a lot of times those gas station air pumps won't reach the pressures that the larger truck tires or the RV tires need. And it was great when a few months ago I'm guessing I hit a nail and the nail came out of the tire and I started to lose pressure. We keep a plug kit in the truck, so I was able to get that and plug the tire. But by the time I was done, I was down to 20 psi in the tire. Having the air compressor allowed me to quickly fill that tire so I could get back home, drop the groceries off, and then go find a tire shop to actually patch the tire for me. And because we have the air compressor already, it wasn't a far stretch to just go ahead and add the air horn. You know, it works great for distracted drivers, or if we come across, you know, some wildlife on the road we need to move along. You know, and we opted for a Tugboat Horn. That's a 37-inch long single trumpet, and it rides just inside the passenger side step rail. So it's tucked up out of the way, doesn't take up a ton of space, and doesn't require us to remove the spare tire like some of the train horn kits do. Power the compressor, we've made use of the upfitter switches inside the cab. So switch 1 powers our compressor, and then switch 6 fires the horn. Switch 6 is kind of off on its own. That way, if you're, you know, trying to get to the horn quickly, you don't have to be real precise. You can just kind of smack over to the side and it'll turn the horn on. We've also got switch 2 set up for our high idle, or the SEIC, stationary engine idle control. If you run implements that need more power, or if you're going to be sitting for long periods of time at idle, this feature will raise the engine RPMs to a preset level based on a resistor value that you choose. So we've got ours set to 1200 RPMs, and it works great if we're going to be sitting for a while. Keeps the AC running nicely. It also helps keep the diesel engine happy and prevent wet stacking that can happen from sitting longer periods of time at lower RPMs. Okay, so back outside. Earlier I mentioned that we used FORScan to reprogram our fuel tank capacity, and that's because we upgraded from the stock 34-gallon tank to the S&B 60-gallon fuel tank. It fits into the stock location with no modifications, and it hangs down about 3/4 of an inch to 1 inch lower than the stock tank and extends a little further forward, but there's already space there for it. And it's been a game changer for us when towing. We have the TSD fuel card and make use of the fuel lanes at truck stops, but I honestly can't remember the last time we've had to stop to fuel up with the trailer. We don't travel far, so I mean our typical move days are 300 miles, maybe a little bit more than that, and we can get over 700 miles of range with this tank. So it's really nice peace of mind to have. Some other things you might notice on the outside of the truck: we've got our Ronin stubby antenna. We added the Ford OEM mud flaps to help keep some of the mess down. But for towing, we use the Andersen weight distribution hitch paired up with a set of rock Tamers for added protection. But if we're going to be in one spot for a few weeks, or we're going to be exploring a city with tight streets and small parking spaces, I'll take that hitch off and I'll pop in our HitchLink with the Warden Epic Shackle. Makes for a functional recovery point in the back, and I think it looks pretty good. So that takes us to our newest modification. I just got the parts yesterday and put them on today. And what I'm talking about is the Tank Warden by Subtle Designs. It's a locking diesel fuel cap and DEF cap. When we first started talking about hitting the road, the idea of securing our tanks came up. And while I don't think it's a huge concern, it is a nice peace of mind knowing that we're not going to come back one day and see that somebody's, stolen our fuel, or, probably worse, has tampered with our fuel and causes us engine trouble and damage and downtime. So we looked around at options on the market, and there was a few, but they just didn't seem that good. There was some bad reviews. They were difficult to use. Apparently I wasn't the only one that thought that, because one of the other members on a message board that I'm on decided to go ahead and design and has just released theirs to the market. So the first round of shipments has just gone out, and they look great and they function awesome. So check out their website if you're interested. They've got a couple of other products slated for release soon that look kind of interesting that I might have to go ahead and pick up as well. So that covers our truck and what we've done to make our life easier on the road. I didn't go into specifics or do a deep dive on anything. So if you'd like to know more, go ahead and reach out in the comments. And if you like this type of content, like and subscribe.